Well, good morning. My name's Suzie. I'm one of the pastors here. And I'm not using the chair because if you're old enough to remember Lily Tomlin's character Edith Ann from The Laugh-In, that's how I feel when I sit in the chair. She's a little tiny woman in a really big chair. I kind of feel like I'm in that chair at the factory when I'm in that chair. And I don't want to feel small. I want to feel mighty and strong, which is really hard to do standing in front of you, let me tell you. So anyway, yeah, that's where I'm at. So thanks for letting me stand and continue with you in this series that we are in called I Can Relate. And it is a subtitled Practicing the Proverbs. So hopefully the last few weeks that you've been here, you've received some really practical guidance and some practical information on how to walk in these truths that God's given us and how to have healthy relationships. And the Proverbs are great because they are called wisdom literature. And what they do is they attempt to answer what kind of a world we're living in and what it looks like to live and love well in that world. And a lot of times they read as if-then statements, and they can sound like they might be promises, but also the thing we have to remember that they can also sound like formulas, and they are not, in fact, meant to be formulas. We can often read them like they're formulas if we're not careful, and then when the outcome doesn't turn out the way we want it to or the way we expect it to, it can lead us to a really bad place. So what I want to pitch out to you today, when I'm going to touch on a few of the Proverbs, and we're going to talk about a few things in here. But what I want to propose to you today is, from now on, when you look at Proverbs especially, when we look at all of Scripture, really, but when we look at Proverbs, in particular in this series, what if we read them not understanding that they were not meant for behavior modification, but for shaping our hearts and changing our perspectives? What if we believed that God was more interested in shaping our hearts and less interested in our behavior modification, because he knows that when our hearts are shaped like his and when our perspective shifts to him, our behavior will then follow suit, right? Seek first the kingdom of God, then all these things will be added unto you. That's kind of how it goes. What if you believed that the purpose of the Proverbs were designed to give you a more accurate view of him and your life as your greatest teacher? Jamie is speaking at a family camp this week, and in between his last trip and this trip, he was in the office for a few days, and he said to us a couple times that God comes disguised to us as our lives. So if God comes to us disguised as our lives, the Proverbs kind of weave in through that with this voice of wisdom, helping us navigate this life that he shows up in. Proverbs also offers the perspective of that of a brilliant teacher, offering her thoughts and insights on how to be smart about everything. It is super practical. It talks about work, money, relationships, family, sex, conflict, spirituality. And throughout Proverbs, there's this sense that there's this belief in this invisible creative force that guides people in how they should live. And that force is known as wisdom. And the Hebrew word for that force is chokhmah. Let me hear you say chokhmah. Like, really get the going. Chokhmah. Yeah. It's the Hebrew word for wisdom. And it's not just wisdom, like a really simple definition of wisdom is knowledge applied, right? So this Hebrew word encompasses not just that knowledge is applied, but it's this attribute of God. And you're either tapping into it or you're not. And it's often personified as a woman in Hebrews, and it talks about her roaming the earth and calling out and making herself available and accessible to anybody who's willing to listen and learn from her ways. And chokhmah isn't just intellectual. It's not just something that you just attain. It's It's also used to describe an artisan who's really good at their craft. So like someone who's really excelling at woodworking or stone making, that you possess chokhmah when you put it to work and use it to develop a good life. So God in his infinite chokhmah spoke the world into being, and he created you and I in his infinite chokhmah. So it's not an impersonal force, but an attribute of God woven into the realities of life. That wisdom that we read about in Proverbs is woven into the practical realities of life. And when we possess it, Proverbs says, it begins with fear. The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. There it is. So, thank you. The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. When we talk about fear, we're not talking about being afraid, or God is not giving us any reason to be afraid of him, but the fear of God is this healthy respect, this awe and wonder that there's this God who knows more, who is more, who's doing more, who has more than we could ever ask or imagine. It's a healthy respect of the definition of good and evil, and a healthy respect of the boundaries and guardrails that he proposes to us through these scriptures in the Proverbs. So the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the nature of wisdom and the wisdom found in Proverbs is meant to shape our hearts, and our identities become more and more wrapped up in Jesus, and we become more like him, and we grow in chokhmah. So we attain these attributes of God as our identity gets more and more wrapped up in him, and we grow in him. So the last few weeks, this series has been, I can relate to my partners in life. And we've talked about people we work with, people we're in close relationship with, marriage, kids, all that. We're shifting today a little bit to, I can relate to what I have been given. So take a second or two and think about, what have you been given? What kept you up at night this week? What are you worried about? Who are you worried about? When you think about the future, how does that make you feel? So I'm going to tell you a few things I've been given. This Thursday, Steve and I are going to celebrate 21 years being married. I've been given a good man, y'all. Yeah. And I would say we have a good marriage. But I would also say that Steve Lind is the provision for my holiness. And that's a good thing. And 21 years, there's a lot that happens in 21 years. There's a lot of pain and a lot of hard stuff, but there's a lot of great stuff. And through that, marriage has been a great teacher for me. I've been given 4 children, and man, oh man, do they teach me stuff every single day. They are really good teachers. And as I'm trying to teach them and shape them, they are also teaching me. I've been given some great friends. I've been given a good job that I love, and I get paid money for that job. I've been given money to pay for the bills that I've been given as well. I've been given a house to take care of. I've been given a family, a mom and a dad that I was born into, and an extended family that comes with a lot of stuff that's affected me in my life. And some of those things have changed and some of them have not. And I've had to learn how to navigate who I am and who God is in the context of being given this family. I have been given a high sense of justice. So I value justice, which can make me kind of a jerk when there's mercy needed. Or grace. It's how I roll, I'm sorry. But I've also been given the gift of encouragement, and I think I can be a really encouraging person, but with that gift, I can also say the wrong thing at the right time, or the right thing at the wrong time, or I can say too much at the wrong time. I mean, if I don't have a good relationship with the gift I've been given, then often that gift can go messed up. I've been given the gift of being able to sing in a choir. I sang in choir through high school and college, but today my pack was on while the worship team was leading us earlier, and that is not a gift I've been given. So I sang in my heart. I made a joyful noise in my heart today. So here's the thing, though. My relationship with all these things that I've been given reveals what my relationship with the giver is. How I respond to what I've been given, to the circumstances that I find myself in, unveils what I believe about the giver. And in turn, then my relationship with the people are affected by the situation that I'm in, by the circumstances I've been given. How I respond, how I relate to those things affects everything, but most importantly, it affects my relationship with the giver. How I view my circumstances will often reveal what I believe about the goodness of God. The path to a healthy relationship with what we've been given begins with gratitude. It always begins with gratitude. So I have 3 teenagers living in my house, and a lot of my friends are also parents of teenagers and preteens-ish. And the complaint that you hear, the exacerbation that you hear a lot from our crowd is that, oh my gosh, our kids are not thankful. They don't know what they have. There's not enough gratitude. I'm sorry if you're a teenager in this room and I'm calling you out, but here's the deal. It comes from us. And we're all kind of like that. It's not just the kids. We all struggle with gratitude because it's not something that comes naturally to us. If you search the Bible, there are hundreds of scriptures that tell us to give thanks in all circumstances, all different ways, commanding us, encouraging us to give thanks. And it often gives a why, because it will go well with your soul, you'll see things more clearly, all different kinds of whys, why giving thanks is a very practical thing to do, but it's not easy for us to do. It doesn't come naturally. 1 Thessalonians 5:18 says, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is actually God's will for you, to be a thankful person, to give thanks in all circumstances. It doesn't mean that you have to give thanks for the circumstances necessarily, but you can give thanks in the circumstances. I talk to a lot of people that when they're going through a really hard time, they're like, don't even give me the Romans 8:28, which I would never do. But you either love that verse or you don't like that verse. Okay, all things work together for the good of those who love him. And I think the thing is that we forget that God is not calling all the things good, but he's saying that all the things are going to work for the good of the people who he loves. So he has good in mind for you. His mindfulness of you is good. What he thinks of you is good. He wants good for you because he is a good God. But if we focus on the things, we lose perspective of the goodness of God. So, according to this article posted in Psychology Today in Forbes magazine, there are actually 7 scientific proven facts, the benefits of gratitude. And I'm sure you've heard them all, but I'm here to remind you. So, the first one is that gratitude opens the door for more relationships. Not only does saying thank you constitute good manners, but showing appreciation can help you win new friends. So think about a person that you have encountered that has sincerely been grateful for something that you've done or said to them. And the way that they've shown their gratitude towards you, it makes you want to hang out with them more, right? So whether you thank a stranger for holding the door or send a thank you note to that colleague who helped you with a project, acknowledging other people's contributions can lead to new opportunities. The second one is that gratitude improves physical health. Grateful people experience fewer aches and pains and report feeling healthier than other people. Grateful people are also more likely to take care of their health. They exercise more often and are likely to attend regular checkups. So if you haven't been to the doctor lately, practice some gratitude and go make an appointment. The third one is that gratitude improves psychological health. Gratitude reduces a multitude of toxic emotions from envy and resentment to frustration and regret. Robert Emmons, a leading gratitude researcher, has conducted multiple studies on the link between gratitude and well-being. His research confirms that gratitude effectively increases happiness and decreases depression. Gratitude enhances empathy and reduces aggression. Grateful people are more likely to behave in a pro-social manner, even when others have behaved less kindly. People are less likely to retaliate against others even when given negative feedback. They experience more sensitivity and empathy towards other people and a decreased desire to seek revenge. So if you were here last week and you heard Kevin's message on the power of feedback, and you're in a situation and someone is offering you feedback and you don't like it, maybe you can practice some gratitude, and that will help prevent you from punching them in the face, because you will be more resilient and with less desire to seek revenge. The fifth thing is that grateful people actually sleep better. So maybe writing a gratitude journal or jotting down a few grateful sentiments before bed, and you might sleep better and longer. Gratitude improves self-esteem. This is really interesting. A study in the Journal of Applied Sports Psychology found that gratitude increased athletes' self-esteem, an essential component to optimal performance. Other studies have shown that gratitude reduces social comparisons. Rather than becoming resentful towards people who have more money or better jobs, a major factor in reduced self-esteem, grateful people are able to appreciate other people's accomplishments. And the last one is that gratitude increases mental strength. For years, research has shown that gratitude not only reduces stress, but it actually plays a major role in overcoming trauma and PTSD, and it's also a major contributor to resilience, recognizing all you have to be thankful for, even in the worst of time, fosters resilience. It's why when you're at a funeral and you see the person closest to the person who's passed away and they're strong and they talk about the things that they're grateful for despite the terrible circumstances, man, I'm so thankful that doctor was there. Man, I'm thankful it happened at this time instead of this time, because it could have been so much worse. All these little things that we're able to open our eyes to, like what Jaden said earlier today, that God shows his love to us in a million little ways. All we have to do is open our eyes to it. If we look for the gratitude, even in the worst, most horrible circumstances, we can become more resilient. So practicing and expressing gratitude may not change your situation, but it will change you. It changes how you see things, and it could also change whoever you're grateful for. Benjamin Hardy says this: there is potentially nothing in the world more powerful than gratitude. It is considered the mother of all virtues. The benefits of gratitude are endless, but more than anything, gratitude helps you realize the abundance all around you. What you focus on expands. When you focus on the abundance, you invite an endless stream of it into your life. Gratitude can be a weapon of the warfare of your mind and your emotions that are trying to battle the life that you're in. Gratitude is a powerful aspect of an abundant mindset. A grateful heart is at the center of an abundant life. So I do not do New Year's resolutions because I don't keep New Year's resolutions, so I gave up. But what I do every year, this is a practice that someone introduced to me a few years ago, is I pick a word for the year. And it usually goes something like this. Towards the end of the year, I'll start praying and asking God to open my ears and open my eyes and give me a word that he wants for me to focus on next year. And it usually is something that I need to grow and learn in. And I'll hear it through conversation, through messages, through books, through the Bible, through songs, through all different kinds of ways. There'll be like something, a recurring theme of something. And I've had words like, one year my word was fun, because it was going to be a really hard year, and it was like God knew I needed to try to have some fun, because I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, and I don't always go for the fun. I go for getting stuff done. So that was an important year for me. This year, my word is content, or it's abundance. And the reason why is because last year, there was a period where a lot of things were happening, and God revealed to me this scarcity mindset that I've had most of my life. I grew up with a dad who was always concerned that there wasn't going to be enough and kind of projected that. And so I made choices and I thought things through in a sense that with this fear, this growing fear that there wouldn't be enough. And it developed this scarcity mindset that has affected actually like a lot of my relationships and my choices in how I live my life and the things that I've tried to do. And so a lot of you know my mom lived with me for about 1.5 years. She moved in with us at the end of 2015. And it was really, really hard. She's had multiple sclerosis for 40 years, and she's quadriplegic and needed a lot of care. And it was really, really, really hard. And there were days where I would be on my knees crying out to God for some kind of deliverance from the situation, because it was hard on her, it was hard on me, and I was losing myself. It was affecting our family. It was really, really hard. And at one point, I sensed God saying, what if there was another way? What if deliverance isn't coming in the way you think it should come, but it might come around a different way? The other part of the story is I grew up believing that I grew up knowing that my mom was going to be my responsibility. And that was a heavy load to place on a child. And I grew up also believing that if I put my mom in a nursing home, that was the end game, that was the worst thing I could possibly do, that would mean failure for me, abandoning her, and any time that thought came up, it was met with shame. So one day, I really believe I gently heard through friends and other means, like, what if you asked God for a great nursing home? Would that even be a possibility? Well, I didn't really believe it, but I was like, all right, I'll ask. So I did. And as soon as I said, okay, I'm going to be open to this, it's like the doors flung open. And God kept showing me over and over again, this is the path of abundance. She will be better cared for in this place. She will have more available to her in this way. You will have more available to you in this way. You will have the ability to care for your children that I've given you and be more present. You'll be able to be more present with your mom. So we went forward with it, and she's there, and she loves it. Who loves a nursing home? My mom. So she loves it, and I'll tell you, I have gone from being her caregiver to her daughter again, which is such a gift. And I am learning so much about gratitude from her. It's unreal. I'll give you a quick example. If you were to ask my mom, what is the thing that you miss the most about being able to walk and stand? She would say, oh, I just miss being able to take a shower. When I go to heaven, the first thing I'm going to do is take a shower. In case you didn't know, there's showers in heaven. So we get to the nursing home, and turns out they have like this contraption where they can get her out of bed and roll her into this shower room. And she just gets hosed down with hot water, and there's ladies bathing her. I mean, it is like glory to her. She loves it. I mean, how do you get from a place of being fully disabled, relying on everybody, most of your dreams in life being altered, to a point where like you are so grateful for a shower? That's gratitude in all things. And if you met her, you would know, like, that's sincere, and it's what has sustained her through her difficulty. Brene Brown says, practicing gratitude invites joy into your life. 12 years of research on 11,000 pieces of data. She said she did not interview one person who had described themselves as joyful who did not also actively practice gratitude. People who practice gratitude in journals or set an alarm or say grace at dinner, or it's a soulful window into people's lives. When we have dinner, sometimes we do these things like we do highs and lows. Everybody do highs and lows? We also do this thing, 3 things that you're grateful for. Some of my children hate it. I'm not going to tell you which ones. Some of them love it. But it doesn't come naturally because you're not allowed to say your family. You're not allowed to say your friends. You have to be specific. You can't be general. But it's hard. Like sometimes they're like we go around the table and it's like, it's hard to come up with something because gratitude doesn't come naturally to us. We have to practice it. So Madeleine L'Engle wrote A Wrinkle in Time, and if you haven't read the book, maybe you've seen the movie, but there's this one part where the hero of the story, Meg, is about to enter into this really difficult path. It's an unknown place, it's very dangerous, and she doesn't know how it's going to go. And there's 3 women that are guiding her the whole time, and they are essentially the voices of wisdom personified. And one of the women, her name is Mrs. Whatsit, she's a wise guide, and she says to Meg, they're all going to give her gifts before she goes into this land. And she says, Meg, to you, I give you the gift of your faults. And Meg says, my faults? I'm always trying to get rid of my faults. Yes, Mrs. Whatsit said. However, I think you'll find they'll come in very handy. What if we gave thanks for our faults? What if we looked at our faults as a gift? Our faults have the ability to become our greatest teacher. Our obstacles have the potential to give us the greatest opportunities for growth. Our failures have the opportunity to show us the best way to success. And it's been said that suffering is the greatest teacher. James, the brother of Jesus, says, consider it pure joy when you encounter trials of every kind, because the testing of your faith is going to produce endurance. So if you're here today and you're going through something and you're questioning your faith, the testing of your faith, that's good. If you're questioning the goodness of God, that's okay. The testing of your faith is going to produce endurance. Engage in the testing of your faith. Prayerfully engage in your doubts. Be where you are. Because the goodness of God is not contingent upon whether you believe he's good. The faithfulness of God is not contingent upon how much faith you have. Because it is who he is. He is good. He is faithful. So a healthy relationship begins with gratitude. A healthy relationship with what we've been given begins with gratitude. A healthy relationship with what we've been given leads to contentment. In Philippians 4, Paul says, I've learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. He did not write these words leaning back at a buffet table on a cruise ship. He wrote these words chained to a prison wall. I have learned what it is to be in need. I have learned what it is to be in want. I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. Contentment is peace of mind. It's peace of mind regardless of what's happening around me. Contentment is freedom from anxiety of my circumstances because I know who's leading me through my circumstances. Contentment is Jesus asleep on the boat in the middle of a storm because he knows with one word he can calm it. Proverbs 19:23 says, the fear of the Lord leads to life, and whoever has it rests satisfied. Whoever has it is content. He will not be visited by harm. A lot of times when people go to places like Honduras and Skid Row from a couple weeks ago, and if they go to Haiti or anywhere in the world where there is not as much abundance as we have here, there's not as much freedom as we have here, there's not as much freedom of choice of where to go, who to be with, what to eat, where to shop, all that stuff. People come back, and the thing that is often said is how remarkable the joy was that they experienced there. How they saw people who had hardly anything compared to what we have, and yet they had so much joy. They were so happy and so welcoming and so willing to share everything that they had. We just celebrated freedom this weekend. But I think sometimes our freedom can get in the way of our contentment. Right? Soren Kierkegaard says anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. Because sometimes we have so many choices and we think we're supposed to do so many things and do them all so well, and it paralyzes us. And we lose sight of what we've been given and what we actually have, and we lose sight of our gratitude. The number one roadblock to contentment, the number one thing that will steal your gratitude and make it benign is comparison. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been hearing a lot of people talk about comparison lately, and I think it's really timely. I mean, we definitely live in a time where comparison is like the threat of falling into a comparison trap is all around us. All around us. I mean, give a kid an iPhone with a camera. Boom. Trapped. Right? But it's been since the beginning of time. Our human nature is to want something that someone else has that's better than ours. It is our human nature. Hence, all the scriptures about gratitude. But what comparison does is that it immediately takes our eyes off of what we've been given and puts our eyes onto what someone else has been given. Proverbs 4:25 says, "Let your eyes look straight ahead, fix your gaze directly before you, give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn to the right or the left." Comparison slowly eats away at our contentment, making room for the toxicity of envy. Comparison is the doorway to envy, which is a feeling that's not linked to truth. Envy is a feeling not linked to fact. It's a feeling of resentment and discontentment from another person's position or success. And what envy does is it leads to strife. And it comes in and it destroys relationships. It dissolves marriages. It annihilates a workplace. It divides a church. At the end of the day, what comparison does is it interrupts our identity in Jesus. Our desire becomes more for the approval of man, validation from others, acceptance from other people. It produces and encourages a veneer-full identity that encourages this filtered, I've got it all together. And then we wonder why people aren't being who they are or showing up as their true selves. Comparison is rooted in fear. It's rooted in the fear of, I don't have enough. I am not enough. The fear of missing out. It is not rooted in love. It has no place in the truth that you are already loved. Comparison has no place in the truth that you are already loved right where you are. Proverbs 14:30 says, "A heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones." It's in our hearts to want what someone else has if it's better. I'm going to tell you a story from a long time ago where this has been the case before magazines and social media and TV made it possible for us. This is a story from John 21. After Jesus has died, he's been resurrected, the apostles are like, okay, what do we do now? This did not turn out how we thought it would. So they do what most people do, and they go back to what they know. So they're out fishing, and they see Jesus across at the beach, and he's building a fire and making them breakfast. And so they roll in, and they see Jesus, the resurrected Jesus, there making breakfast for them. And this is Peter's first encounter with Jesus since the whole get behind me, you're going to betray me, or you're going to deny me 3 times. No, I would never do that. And he goes and he denies him 3 times, and Jesus is crucified and died. This is their first conversation. After breakfast, Jesus says to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" "Yes, Master, you know I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my lambs." He asked a second time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" "Yes, Master, you know I love you." Jesus said, "Shepherd my sheep." Then he said it a third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was upset that he asked for the third time, "Do you love me?" So he answered, "Master, you know everything there is to know. You know that I love you." And isn't it so beautiful that Peter denies Jesus 3 times, and 3 times Jesus reinstates him. "Do you love me?" and gives him a calling on his life. "Go feed my lambs, shepherd my sheep." Jesus said, "Feed my sheep. I'm telling you the very truth now. When you were young, you dressed yourself and went whenever you wished. But when you get old, you'll have to stretch out your hands when someone else dresses you and takes you where you don't want to go. He said this to hint at the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. And then he commanded, "Follow me." Okay, how many times have you said, man, if God was just right here telling me what to do, it would make everything better, right? Man, if God would just come down from heaven and just tell me what I'm supposed to do with my life, it would make things so much easier, right? I mean, this is it. He's like saying, this is your invitation to come with me and participate in what I'm doing. Follow me. Go feed my lambs. Shepherd my people. This is your calling in life. This is the work I have for you in life. And the first thing that Peter does is he turns his head and he notices John, the disciple Jesus loved, following right behind. And when Peter noticed him, he asked Jesus, "What about him? The one that you love. What's he going to do? How's he going to die?" And Jesus responds and says, "If I want him to live until I come again, what's that to you? You follow me. You stay in your lane. You look at what I have laid before you, and you walk with me. Don't look to your left. Don't look to your right. Don't compare yourself to other people. I've called you. I've invited you. You follow me." When we compare ourselves and our circumstances to that of other people, they become the measuring stick, not God. Comparison puts other people in the place of priority over my relationship with God. It tells me that people and their opinions are more important than God and his calling on my life. If whether I do something creatively depends on how people responded to what I just did creatively, they have become the measuring stick for God's calling on my life, not him. And then the goodness of the provider comes into question. If I lean into that too hard, the goodness of God comes into question, and I question his goodness, his kindness, his provision, his grace, what he is teaching me. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Guarding your heart is an active participation in gratitude. It's actively making the decision to not give in to comparison. Like, I'm going to confess to you that sometimes when y'all go on vacation, I stop following you on Instagram for a bit. Because it's hard for me. I want to go on vacation, but I can't right now, you know? And so, I have to, actively guard my heart. It's not because I don't love you. It's because I have to guard my heart, because otherwise I won't celebrate with you, and I want to celebrate with you. Practicing gratitude is an active response to what God is doing, is actively guarding your heart. Practicing contentment and getting all the things that get you distracted from being content with where God has you is actively guarding your heart. So I want to close with a moment of reflection. I'm going to invite the band to come back up here. So if you'd close your eyes or just find a spot to focus on. Maybe you came here today and you're questioning the goodness of God. Maybe you're doubting his faithfulness. Maybe you're doubting in his existence, because how could he be if this is how it is? Take a moment and just be where you are. First Corinthians 7:17 says, "Don't be wishing you were someplace else or with someone else. Where you are right now is God's place for you. Live and obey and love and be and believe right there. God, not your circumstances, defines your life." Friends, God knows where we are. He knows where you are right now. He knows who you're married to. He knows who your kids are and who they're becoming. He knows about your job. He knows about the bills that you have that you're struggling to pay. He knows about what's aching in your body right now. He knows about your unmet expectations. He knows about your dreams. He knows about your desires. He knows what you have, and He knows what He has to give you. He loves you. He knows about your broken situations, and He's given you everything you need for a life of goodness and a life without fear, a life that is dictated by love and not fear. If we were to do one thing differently to change our prayer life into one that is just of giving thanks and just of giving gratitude, I'm willing to stand here before you and promise you, maybe not overnight, but eventually something would shift. What if that thing that you've been praying for, that you think hasn't been answered, was answered with a no or a not yet? What if that is the answer and we believed that and could give thanks for that? What if we acknowledge that there was so much more going on than what we can see right in front of us? God, would you open our eyes to see you in all the million ways that you show us your love? Would you open our eyes to what you've already done and what you're doing right now, where we are, and cultivate in us a heart of gratitude. Give us the courage to actively participate in that and to practice that with you, God, and shift our minds, shift our perspective, shape our hearts to become more like yours.